The truth is, I sold my house. My brother-in-law Kevin told my husband. I began, stunned into silence. The person most shocked was my mother-in-law. Why? Why would you do such a thing? Weren't you supposed to come pick me up? Visibly upset, my mother-in-law confronted Kevin. Calm down, Kevin tried to pacify her, starting to explain his reasoning. I'm Sandra. My husband Robert and I do remote work. The tranquil work environment allows us to take breaks whenever we need, my mother-in-law announced after moving in with us. We were financially secure, so we had no complaints. But why aren't you two going out to work? She would often gaze at us disapprovingly, leaving me drained as if we were back at square one. We clarified that we were working remotely, but she cut in, but aren't you just goofing off? I've told Robert the same. Are you even paying attention? When will you both get serious about work? Don't you think about your future? My mother-in-law refused to comprehend our job. I'm so worried. I wonder if I made a mistake coming here. I should have gone to Kevin's house, she sighed frequently. The Kevin she mentioned is Robert's brother. He married a wealthy woman named Carol, who he met somewhere, and it seems he's living off her wealth. My mother-in-law wasn't aware of this. Kevin asked us not to tell her. Kevin's house isn't small like this one. It's enormous, like a foreign castle. Well, I plan to move to Kevin's house eventually. It will become my home, my mother-in-law would say, waiting for Kevin to come fetch her. We knew that day would never come. Kevin and his wife would never come to pick her up. Robert had once adjusted to his mother's fondness for Kevin, hoping she could live with him. However, Kevin refused to have his mother live with him, so she ended up with us. Despite our remote work being dismissed as unemployment, we resigned ourselves to her ways. But an incident occurred that made it impossible to tolerate any longer. Out of the blue, we received a call from Kevin. I'll be coming over this weekend. He hung up before we could respond. What do we do? That guy hasn't changed. Robert and I were puzzled. Overhearing us, my mother-in-law leaned in, looking thrilled. He's coming to pick me up. Help me get ready to move, she said, pulling Robert toward her room. Robert looked troubled. Mom, Kevin isn't coming to pick you up. He probably called because something happened. She snorted, unconvinced. That can't be true. But he didn't mention picking you up on the phone, did he? He just didn't say it, Robert. I'm tired of this house. You probably hope to make me a housekeeper, but that's not going to happen. We couldn't understand why she had such paranoid thoughts. Since coming to our house, she did as she pleased, avoided housework, and lived on the allowance we provided. Well, we weren't going to force my mother-in-law to stay, so we packed her bags as she requested and waited for his brother to arrive. Over the weekend, my brother-in-law and his wife arrived at our home. As soon as they entered, their faces bore suspiciously ingratiating expressions. I had a sinking feeling. Just then, my mother-in-law appeared with eager eyes. You're finally here. Sandra is utterly useless with house chores, so I end up doing everything, and Robert completely ignores me. It's awful, she lamented, brushing past Robert to greet her brother. Don't mistreat Mom, Kevin interjected. We would never do that. We give her an allowance, and she eats whatever she likes. Sandra manages the household chores, Robert replied, his expression conflicted. Kevin seemed skeptical. Robert has always been a bit clueless, probably mistreating Mom without even realizing it, and Sandra doesn't seem very considerate either, my mother-in-law chimed in. Exactly, Kevin really gets me. Robert and I exchanged irritated glances at this conversation. Nevertheless, we decided to be gracious hosts and led them to the living room. We all took our seats around the coffee table, with Robert and me on one side and the couple on the other. Now what? Are you just sitting around? Serve the tea. Huh? I thought you were going to make the tea, mother-in-law. What are you saying? Making an old woman work? Kevin, this is what Sandra is like. My mother-in-law even began fake crying. I was so stunned by her behavior that I couldn't bring myself to respond. After I served the tea, the atmosphere became somber. The truth is, we sold our house. Robert and I were shocked to hear Kevin's words, but the one who seemed most stunned was my mother-in-law. Why? Why would you do something like that? Weren't you supposed to come and pick me up? She asked, flustered, confronting Kevin. He tried to calm her down, saying, Take it easy, before explaining. We were in debt, and selling the house was the only way to clear it. Now we have nowhere to live, so we came to see if we could stay here. What debt? I was trying to start a business, but it didn't work out. Well, these things happen, don't they? Kevin chuckled, somewhat shamelessly. Robert and I exchanged exasperated looks. We just need a place to stay until we find a new home. Please, we have no one else to turn to. The couple bowed their heads together. Our expressions must have been conflicted, but if they had nowhere else to go, we had little choice. We agreed to let them temporarily stay in our house. Got it, Kevin said, still laughing, as he went off to prepare to move their belongings. Once they had left, my mother-in-law sat in silence, deep in thought. Robert and I assumed she was still processing everything. The next day, their belongings arrived promptly. This much. Where are we going to put all of this? It's a problem. We might need to sell some or rent a storage unit, we discussed while moving Kevin's things. During this process, my mother-in-law dropped a bombshell on us. I've been thinking, wouldn't we be more secure in the future if Kevin stays here? So you freeloaders can leave, can't you? Her abrupt statement caught my husband and me off guard. If you insist, I can tolerate Robert staying, but I don't need a wife who can't do anything. Get a divorce and all the space Sandra occupies could be used for these packages, my mother-in-law eagerly demanded, looking to my husband for agreement. What are you saying? He responded, clearly shocked. Soon after, my brother-in-law and his wife arrived. Despite my unease from her earlier words, my husband chose to set them aside for the moment and asked his brother to handle the packages. There's more than I expected. Try to reduce the amount, rent a locker, or sell some if necessary, my husband suggested. Upon hearing this, his brother gave him a stern look. What are you talking about? These packages are important. How could I sell them? And what if they get stolen or damaged in a locker? Will you take responsibility for that? My husband sighed at his brother's selfishness. This is our house, you know. It's only natural that you should endure some inconvenience, right? If you don't like it, find a place to live quickly and leave, my husband insisted. My mother-in-law immediately countered, what are you talking about? I just said if you and Kevin aren't happy, you can leave. You're freeloaders. You're not needed here. Kevin is trying to start a business, and all you two do is sit around doing so-called remote work. You're a nuisance. Her words rang out as if she owned the place. My husband and I exchanged incredulous glances. My brother-in-law and his wife seemed surprised at my mother-in-law's outburst but quickly began to smirk. That's not a bad idea, Mom. Selling this house to us sounds like a plan, Kevin chimed in. It's a hassle to find a new place, so we might as well take over. What do you think, Carol? I'm uncomfortable with having you two around, so it would be better if you sold the house to us, Carol added. Besides, it seems like our mother-in-law is on our side. Let's make a deal. My husband and I were left dumbfounded by their unexpected proposition. What nonsense are you? My husband started, but my mother-in-law cut in triumphantly. See, both Kevin and Carol agree with me. So Robert, what will you do? If you're divorcing, you can stay here. She glared at me, expecting a reaction. I prepared to respond, but my husband spoke first. Stop saying whatever you want. Why should Sandra leave? He was visibly angry, his voice rising. Don't shout like that. It's better without such a burden around, isn't it? My mother-in-law shot back, but my husband sighed in frustration. You don't understand. This is Sandra's house. At his words, my mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and his wife gasped. Undeterred, my husband continued, addressing them all. This house was bought for our life together by Sandra. What? What do you mean? Isn't it the husband's responsibility to buy the house? There's no rule like that. Besides, Sandra covers all of Mom's expenses and allowance, I interjected. I took on that responsibility because your pension is minimal. Financially, it wouldn't be feasible otherwise. Robert glared intensely at his mother, who seemed incredulous as she looked at me and chuckled. Absurd. Sandra just sits around on the computer all day. She doesn't even do housework properly. How else could she afford to give me $500 a month if not for my pension? Moreover, Sandra manages my pension. You might have told Robert otherwise, but I'm sure you're dipping into my pension. She stared defiantly at me. I met her gaze firmly. That's not true. I've succeeded in my business endeavors. You're mistaken. Stop spreading lies. Robert should divorce this deceitful wife and come live with me, Kevin and Carol. There's no proof Sandra earns anything. Show us. With that, I retrieved my paycheck and displayed it to her. The sight left my mother-in-law, Kevin, and his wife speechless. We haven't touched Mom's pension since she moved in here. Sandra manages it so she can maintain her independence. But Mom, you've been bossing Sandra around, interfering with her work. That's the problem. If you don't get along with Sandra, maybe it's time for you to leave, Robert asserted firmly. I don't believe any of this, Kevin's wife interjected. We agreed to let you and Kevin stay temporarily, but patience is necessary. Frankly, we didn't want you here in the first place. We only agreed because you begged us, Robert continued, glaring at Kevin and his wife. Kevin and his wife visibly tense, unaccustomed to Robert raising his voice. Just kidding, but seriously, Sandra seems to be doing well for herself. Maybe she can teach me a thing or two about business, right, Carol? Kevin tried to lighten the mood. While we were concerned about living with our sister-in-law, she's proven to be a good person, Kevin's wife added. But my mother-in-law remained steadfast. Don't act superior. You're just lazy. Enough, Robert. You should leave too. Step outside and see how tough the world really is. My mother-in-law, resolute in her stance, refused to listen to reason. Robert and I exchanged exasperated looks. Well, if that's how you feel, we'll pack our things and find a new place. You'll be stuck with the mortgage, but if that's what you want, don't come running to us for help, Robert declared, glaring at Kevin and his wife. If you insist on Mom leaving, maintaining your lifestyle with just her pension will be challenging. But I guess that's your decision, I added. At our words, my mother-in-law flushed red and demanded we leave. Wait, are you serious? We don't have to do this, do we? Kevin's wife pleaded. Yes, we do. If you two are here, we're safe, my mother-in-law insisted fiercely, leering at Kevin. Don't you dare defy me, Kevin. You want to be a CEO, right? Use my pension, start a company and prove yourself. I'll show you what happens when you go against us. Her words were filled with determination. Hearing this, we decided it was best to disengage from her and Kevin's family and left the house. The mortgage remained, but we transferred ownership to Kevin's name. Some time had passed since then. While there was still some lingering tension from that incident, being free from my mother-in-law's criticism had restored some peace to our lives. We had settled back into our usual routine of working from home in our new apartment when my mother-in-law called my husband, sobbing. Kevin has taken my pension and had disappeared. It's been a week and he hasn't returned. Carol and I are alone in the house and we're in trouble. Please help us, she pleaded through tears. After calming her down, my husband asked why Kevin had left. Unable to continue, my mother-in-law passed the phone to Carol. Please call us back. We can't live like this. Ever since Kevin's startup failed and he sold the house we were living in, our parents have cut us off. My dad won't forgive us for selling that house. We haven't been able to reach either of them, Carol explained desperately. Upon hearing this, my husband muttered in a disgusted tone, I knew it. That's unfortunate, but we warned you when we left, didn't we? We won't get involved even if you come to us for help. Report Kevin missing to the police. It's not our problem. With that, he ended the call. I was taken aback, but my husband stated firmly, they brought this upon themselves. And I nodded in agreement. Afterwards, they continued to call my husband's phone multiple times. Frustrated, he finally answered, and Carol tearfully admitted she didn't know how to report Kevin missing. We advised her to contact the police, but even after doing so, Kevin remained missing. Just when we thought they might never find him, we learned that Kevin had been arrested for bank robbery in another state. It was shocking news. He apparently committed the crime to repay his debts. This wasn't his first offense, and he was facing a substantial prison sentence. Carol couldn't return to her parents' home and remained with my mother-in-law in their house. The prospect of divorce hung uncertainly over her amidst her larger worries. She found some stability by registering with a temp agency and managing to make ends meet in her first job ever, despite the challenges. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law faced the harsh reality of Kevin taking all her pension to repay his debts. She started working part-time to cover these unexpected expenses. My husband and I felt sympathy for my mother-in-law and Carol's situation, but we had firmly decided not to intervene or offer assistance. We cut off all communication with them. It seemed they were experiencing the very hardships my mother-in-law had often warned us about. Despite the turmoil caused by my mother-in-law's stay with us, my husband and I were relieved to return to our peaceful days.